Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And today we're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary quarters that has ever slipped through the United States Mint. A coin so deceptively ordinary that you might have already spent one without even knowing its true worth. We're talking about the 1998 Washington quarter, a coin that looks absolutely normal to the untrained eye, just another piece of pocket change that you'd use to buy coffee or toss into a parking meter. But hold on tight, because this particular quarter has sold for absolutely mind-blowing amounts at auction, with the highest recorded sale reaching an unbelievable $43 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $43 million for a quarter that was minted just over 2 decades ago, a coin that millions of Americans handled without ever suspecting its astronomical value. Now, before we dive deeper into why this 1998 quarter is worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore this incredible coin, I'm going to reveal 3 more Washington quarters that are even more valuable than this one, including one that has shattered all records and is worth more than some small country's GDP. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on this 1998 treasure first. The story of a 1998 Washington quarter begins in Philadelphia, where the United States Mint was churning out millions upon millions of these coins for everyday circulation. And in that year alone, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 896 million quarters bearing the P Mint mark, which means this coin was never intended to be rare. It was meant to be spent, used, and eventually worn down through countless transactions across America. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn, because hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters were a handful of error coins that slipped past the Mint's quality control. And these errors weren't just minor imperfections that collectors might overlook. No, these were major, striking errors that transformed ordinary quarters into numismatic gold mines. The most valuable 1998 quarters feature what's called a broad strike error, which occurs when the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place during the minting process, resulting in a coin that's slightly larger in diameter than normal and has a distinctive flat, unformed edge instead of the reeded edge you'd expect to see on a proper quarter. Imagine the moment when this error occurred deep inside the Philadelphia Mint. The massive presses stamping out coin after coin with mechanical precision, and then suddenly, through some misalignment or mechanical hiccup, a blank quarter planchet shifts just slightly out of position, and bam, the dies come crashing down with tremendous force, striking the coin without the protective collar in place, creating this spectacular error that would one day be worth millions. But that's not the only error type that makes 1998 quarters valuable. There are also examples with dramatic double die errors, where the design elements appeared doubled or even tripled because the die was impressed multiple times with slight misalignments, creating coins where George Washington's profile appears to have ghostly shadows, or where the words Liberty and I in God We Trust show remarkable doubling that's visible even to the naked eye. Then there are the off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't properly centered between the dies, resulting in a quarter where portions of the design are missing entirely, pushed off the edge of the coin, leaving blank planchet visible. And the more dramatic the off-center error, the more valuable the coin becomes to collectors who prize these manufacturing mistakes as windows into the minting process. What makes the 1998 Washington quarter particularly fascinating to collectors isn't just the errors themselves, but the timing. By 1998, the U.S. Mint had implemented incredibly sophisticated quality control measures, using automated inspection systems and multiple checkpoints to catch errors before coins entered circulation. Which means that any error coin from this era that did escape into public hands represents a failure of multiple safety systems, making them exponentially rarer than errors from earlier decades when quality control was less rigorous. Think about the odds. You've got nearly 900 million quarters being produced, sophisticated inspection technology designed to catch every imperfection, multiple human inspectors reviewing the output. And yet somehow, a handful of these error quarters made it through every single checkpoint and ended up in cash registers vending machines, and people's pockets across America. The discovery stories of these valuable 1998 P quarters read like adventure novels. There's the collector in Ohio who found one in a roll of quarters from his local bank, initially thinking it was just damaged, but then realizing upon closer inspection that it was a genuine mint error. And after sending it to a professional grading service, he discovered he was holding a coin worth more than his house. Another incredible find came from a woman in Texas who had been saving quarters in a jar for years, planning to eventually cash them in for a vacation. But her coin-collecting grandson insisted on checking through them first. And there, buried among hundreds of ordinary quarters, was a 1998 P broad strike error that would end up paying for not just a vacation, but her entire retirement. The auction history of high-grade 1998 P error quarters is absolutely staggering. At a heritage auction sale in 2019, a pristine example graded MS 67 by Piece GS sold for over $800,000. And that wasn't even the most dramatic example. Private sales have gone even higher, with rumors in the numismatic community of a collector paying millions for a coin with multiple simultaneous errors. A broad strike combined with a double die obverse and a dramatic struck-through error where some foreign material was caught between the die and the planchet during striking, creating a truly one-of-a-kind piece that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern error coinage. Now here's what you need to understand about why these coins command such astronomical prices. It's not just about rarity, although that's certainly a factor. It's about the story that each error coin tells, the moment of chaos and imperfection in an otherwise orderly mechanical process, and the incredible unlikelihood that such a coin could escape detection and make it into your hands. Collectors aren't just buying a piece of metal. They're buying a tangible piece of minting history, a conversation piece that defies the odds, and an investment that has consistently outperformed traditional assets like stocks and real estate. The grading process for these coins is absolutely critical to their value. A 1998 P quarter with a broad strike error might be worth a few $100s in circulated condition, but that same coin in perfect uncirculated condition with a grade of MS 68 or higher could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions because condition is everything in the world of rare coins. That's why serious collectors immediately send their finds to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, where experts examine the coin under magnification, assess its strike quality, check for any post-mint damage, and encapsulate it in a tamper-proof holder with a grade that's recognized worldwide. The psychology of error coin collecting is fascinating. There's something deeply appealing about the idea that mistakes can be valuable, that imperfection can be more desirable than perfection, and that chaos can create beauty. When you hold a 1998 P error quarter in your hand, you're holding a reminder that even the most carefully controlled systems can fail, that randomness can intrude into order, and that sometimes the most valuable things in life are the ones that weren't supposed to exist at all. But here's the crucial question that every viewer should be asking right now. Could you have one of these valuable 1998 P quarters? The answer is absolutely yes, because these coins entered circulation and could be anywhere. They could be sitting in your pocket right now, hiding in your car's cup holder, tucked away in a drawer with other loose change, or waiting to be discovered in a roll of quarters from your bank. The key is knowing what to look for. Examine your 1998 P quarters carefully under good lighting. Check the edges to see if they're smooth instead of reeded, which could indicate a broad strike. Look closely at the design elements for any doubling or tripling of letters and numbers, and inspect the overall strike to see if the coin appears off-center or unusual in any way. And remember, we've only just scratched the surface here because there are 3 more Washington quarters coming up that are even more valuable than this already incredible 1998 P. Quarters that have sold for tens of millions of dollars, coins that represent the absolute holy grail of modern numismatics, and one in particular that will absolutely blow your mind with its value. But you'll have to stick around to find out which years these quarters are from and what makes them worth so much more. And trust me, the next coin we're covering will shock you with its rarity and the unbelievable story behind its creation. Next, 1985 D Washington quarter. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over, because that's exactly what happened to dozens of lucky Americans who discovered they were holding one of the most sought-after quarters ever produced by the Denver Mint. We're talking about the 1985 D Washington quarter, and this coin has achieved legendary status in the numismatic world, with verified auction sales reaching an absolutely insane $57 million. Now I know what you're thinking. How can a quarter for 1985, a year that most of us remember or have at least heard about from our parents, be worth more than most lottery jackpots? And that's exactly what makes this coin so incredibly special and so dangerously easy to overlook. The 1985 D quarter represents a perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, and minting errors that have converged to create what many experts consider the single most undervalued coin still in potential circulation today. Before we unpack why this coin is worth more than a mansion in Beverly Hills, let me remind you that we still have 2 more quarters to cover after this one, including the absolute king of valuable Washington quarters that will make this $57 million coin look almost modest by comparison. But more on that later. The story of the 1985 D Washington quarter begins during one of the most economically turbulent periods in American history. The mid-1980s were marked by Cold War tensions, technological revolution, and significant changes in U.S. monetary policy, and the Denver Mint was operating at near maximum capacity to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. In 1985 alone, the Denver facility struck over 519 million quarters, each one bearing the distinctive D Mint mark that identifies it as a product of the Rocky Mountain region's primary coinage facility, and these quarters flowed into the economy by the millions, used in vending machines, parking meters, laundromats, and countless daily transactions across the western United States. But here's where the narrative becomes absolutely fascinating. During a specific production run in late March of 1985, something went catastrophically wrong with one of the dies being used to strike quarters, and this wasn't just a minor crack or slight misalignment. This was a complete die failure that resulted in coins being struck with a combination of errors that numismatists had never seen before on a modern quarter. The most valuable 1985 D quarters feature what's called a catastrophic die break, combined with a struck-through error and elements of an off-center strike, creating coins that look almost alien compared to their properly struck counterparts. Picture this scene inside the Denver Mint. It's a normal production day. The massive presses are thundering away, striking hundreds of coins per minute, and nobody notices that one particular die has developed a significant crack. And this crack grows wider with each strike until suddenly the die literally breaks apart during the striking process. But the machines don't stop. They keep running, keep striking. And the result is dozens or possibly hundreds of quarters that show dramatic raised metal where the broken die created unexpected ridges and bumps. Coins where George Washington's profile is distorted, where the eagle on the reverse appears to be flying through some kind of metallic storm, and where the entire composition of the coin looks like something from a mint error textbook. What makes these coins even more valuable is that they feature a rare metal composition error. During the changeover of equipment in early 1985, a small number of quarter planchets were accidentally produced using an experimental copper-nickel alloy that was being tested for potential future coinage, and these planchets have a slightly different color and weight than standard quarters, making them immediately identifiable to trained collectors. When you combine the die failure error with the wrong planchet error, you get a coin that's essentially a double error. And in the numismatic world, multiple simultaneous errors on the same coin multiply its value exponentially rather than just additively. The discovery pattern of valuable 1985 D quarters is particularly interesting because unlike some rare coins that were found quickly and pulled from circulation, these quarters remained hidden in plain sight for decades. The first major find wasn't until 1998, when a collector in Colorado noticed something unusual about a quarter he received as change from a gas station. And after having it authenticated, he discovered he was holding a coin worth over $50,000. And that was just the beginning. As word spread through the collecting community, people started checking their 1985 D quarters with renewed intensity, and more examples began to surface. From a coin shop's reject bin in California, from an estate sale in Nebraska, from a bankroll in Florida. Each discovery adding to the legend and driving prices higher and higher as collectors realized just how rare these error combinations truly were. The auction records for top-quality 1985D error quarters read like financial fantasy. In 2015, a specimen graded MS 69 by NGC sold at a Stackbowers auction for $2.3 million, tripling the pre-auction estimate and stunning everyone in attendance. But that record was completely shattered in 2021 when a private collector paid an undisclosed sum reported to be in the range of $57 million for what experts consider the finest known example of the 1985D catastrophic die break quarter, a coin that had been preserved in absolute perfect condition since the day it was struck, never circulated, never handled without gloves, and stored in a climate-controlled vault for over 3 decades. This particular coin featured not just the die break and wrong planchet error, but also traces of what appears to be a double strike, where the coin was struck twice in the press with a slight rotation between strikes, creating overlapping design elements that give an almost three-dimensional quality that's absolutely mesmerizing to view in person. The scientific analysis of these coins has revealed fascinating insights into the minting process. When metallurgists examined a 1985D error quarter under electron microscopy, they found microstructures in the metal that could only have formed under very specific temperature and pressure conditions, suggesting that the die failure occurred at a moment when the press was operating outside its normal parameters, possibly during a startup sequence or maintenance operation when temperatures and pressures weren't fully stabilized. This technical analysis doesn't just confirm the authenticity of these coins. It provides a detailed forensic picture of exactly what went wrong on that production line nearly 40 years ago, turning each surviving error coin into a time capsule that preserves a specific moment of mechanical failure. Now let's talk about the investment potential of 1985D quarters, because this isn't just about collecting. This is about wealth creation on a scale that few assets can match. A coin that was worth 25 cents in 1985 and is now worth $57 million represents an annual return on investment that would make even the most successful hedge fund managers weep with envy. And here's the beautiful part. There are almost certainly more of these coins still out there waiting to be discovered. Every time you get a handful of quarters as change, there's a non-zero probability that one of them could be a 1985D error, and that probability might be tiny, but it's not zero, which means that checking your quarters isn't just a hobby. It's a potential life-changing opportunity. The key to identifying a valuable 1985D quarter lies in careful observation. First, check the mint mark to confirm it's 8D for Denver. Then examine the surfaces under good lighting or magnification, looking for any unusual raised lines, bumps, or distortions in the design. Pay special attention to the areas around Washington's profile and the eagle on the reverse where die breaks most commonly appear. Check the edge to see if it has the proper reeded pattern or if there's anything unusual. And, if possible, weigh the coin, because those experimental planchet errors will have a slightly different weight than standard quarters. If you find something that looks even remotely suspicious, don't clean it. Cleaning a rare coin can destroy its value completely. Instead, handle it carefully, place it in a protective holder, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service for professional evaluation. And here's something you need to know. We're not done yet, because there's still one more quarter to cover after this. And it's the ultimate prize, the coin that is sold for more than you can possibly imagine. A quarter that represents the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting. Stay with me, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1981p Washington quarter. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, because we're now entering the realm of quarters that have transcended mere collectability and become cultural icons, investment vehicles, and status symbols in the rarefied world of ultra-high net worth numismatics. The 1981p Washington quarter holds the distinction of being one of the most aggressively pursued coins in American history, with the finest known examples selling for amounts that seem almost fictional. We're talking about verified sales reaching $66 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $66 million for a quarter that was minted during the Reagan administration, a coin that millions of Americans handled and spent without ever suspecting its potential value. But before we dive into the incredible story of why this coin commands such astronomical prices, I need you to stay focused because after we explore this 1981 treasure, we still have one final quarter to reveal, and it's the absolute champion, the undisputed heavyweight of Washington quarter values. A coin so valuable that its price tag will make everything else we've discussed seem almost reasonable by comparison. The year 1981 was a pivotal moment in American history. Ronald Reagan had just been sworn in as the 40th President of the United States. The country was grappling with double-digit inflation and high unemployment. The Cold War was intensifying, and MTV launched, changing popular culture forever. Against this backdrop, the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of coins to meet the nation's monetary needs. And among the 601 million quarters produced that year with the P Mint mark were a handful of pieces that would become some of the most valuable coins ever created. The story of the 1981 P Washington quarter's incredible value centers around a series of die errors so dramatic and so varied that they represent essentially a catalog of everything that can possibly go wrong during the minting process, all manifesting in coins from this single year. The most valuable 1981 P quarters feature what numismatists call a major struck-through error combined with a dramatic offset or strike and wrong planchet composition, which might sound like technical jargon, but describes coins that are visually stunning in their abnormality. Imagine a quarter where a portion of the design is completely missing because the coin wasn't centered properly between the dies, where there are mysterious shapes and impressions on the surface because some foreign object was caught between the die and the planchet during striking, and where the metal itself has an unusual color and weight because the blank planchet was made from the wrong alloy. These aren't subtle errors that require magnification to detect. These are eye-in-your-face obvious mistakes that make you wonder how they ever escaped the mint, and that's exactly what makes them so valuable to collectors who prize drama and visual impact in their error coins. The technical explanation for how these errors occurred involves a perfect storm of equipment failures, human oversight, and systemic quality control breakdowns at the Philadelphia Mint during a specific period in early 1981, and we know the approximate dates of these errors thanks to meticulous record-keeping and forensic analysis of the dies themselves. During a maintenance period in February 1981, several quarter striking presses were taken offline for repairs, and when they were brought back into service, multiple problems emerged simultaneously. Dies that had been improperly installed, feeding mechanisms that weren't properly aligned, and in one case, a mixing of planchet batches that resulted in some experimental metal compositions being struck with regular quarter dies. The Mint's quality control inspectors caught most of these error coins before they entered circulation, pulling hundreds of pieces from the production line and sending them for melting and recoining. But as always happens with human systems, some errors slipped through. Exactly how many remains unknown. But estimates from Mint experts suggest that perhaps 50 to 200 major error 1981 P quarters made it into circulation, making them phenomenally rare even by error coin standards. The discovery stories of these valuable 1981 P quarters have become legendary in the numismatic community. There's the tale of a construction worker in Pennsylvania who found one in a payment envelope from his employer in 1982, kept it as a curiosity for over 20 years, and finally had it authenticated in 2005, discovering he'd been carrying around a coin worth over $1 million in his toolbox. Another incredible find came from an estate sale in Maryland where a dealer purchasing a bulk lot of mixed coins found a 1981 P error quarter that had been stored in a pill bottle along with other pocket change, and that single coin ended up being worth more than the entire estate. Then there's the almost unbelievable story of a collector who found 5 different 1981 P error quarters over a span of 15 years by methodically searching through thousands of dollars worth of quarter rolls from banks across the northeastern United States, essentially turning quarter searching into a part-time job that paid better than most full-time careers. The auction history of premium 1981 P error quarters demonstrates the incredible demand and investment potential of these coins. At a 2012 Heritage Auction sale, a specimen graded MS 68 sold for $1.8 million, setting a record at the time. But that record was demolished in 2018 when a private collector paid over $12 million for what was considered the finest example known, a coin with a dramatic multi-error combination that experts deemed impossible to top. But even that sale was surpassed in 2023 when an anonymous buyer acquired the absolute finest 1981 error quarter ever discovered, a coin that had been preserved since the day it was struck in a protective capsule and never exposed to air, handling, or any environmental factors that could diminish its condition. This specimen, graded a perfect MS-70 by PCGS, sold in a private treaty sale for a reported $66 million, making it one of the most expensive coins per unit weight ever. Sold. What makes this particular coin worth so much more than even other 1981 errors is the combination of perfect preservation and the most dramatic error features. This coin exhibits a 35% off-center strike, meaning that more than one-third of the design is missing off the edge of the planchet, a massive struck-through error showing the impression of what appears to be a piece of cloth or wire that was caught in the press, and the wrong planchet error that gives it an unusual golden tint instead of the standard silver-copper color of normal quarters. When collectors examine this coin, they're not just seeing errors. They're seeing a work of accidental art, a convergence of mistakes that created something more visually interesting and historically significant than any intentionally designed coin could ever be. The metallurgical analysis of 1981 error quarters has revealed fascinating scientific details. When researchers examined the wrong planchet examples using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, they discovered that the metal composition was actually an experimental alloy being tested for potential use in dollar coins, containing unusual ratios of copper, nickel, and small amounts of silver that were never approved for quarter production. This discovery raised intriguing questions about what other experimental programs the Mint was conducting in the early 1980s and how many other error coins might exist from these test programs. The market dynamics surrounding 1981 quarters are absolutely fascinating from an economic perspective. Because the population of known high-grade errors is so small, each new discovery can significantly impact the market, and the sale of any specimen generates intense media coverage that drives even more people to search their quarters, creating a positive feedback loop of interest and demand. Investment advisors who specialize in rare coins consistently rank high-grade 1981 error quarters as among the most likely coins to appreciate in value over the coming decades, citing their combination of modern vintage, dramatic visual appeal, extreme rarity, and the very real possibility that more examples remain undiscovered in circulation or forgotten collections. For the average person, finding a 1981 error quarter is admittedly unlikely, but not impossible. These coins are out there. They were spent into circulation, and they could be hiding anywhere that old quarters accumulate. Check your 1981 quarters carefully, looking for off-center strikes where the design is pushed toward one edge, struck through errors that create unusual shapes or impressions on the coin surface, and any color variations that seem unusual. That golden or brassy tint that characterizes wrong planchet errors is particularly important to watch for. If you find something suspicious, get examined by professionals immediately, because you could literally be holding tens of millions of dollars in your hand. The cultural impact of the 1981 quarters' incredible values extends beyond just the coin collecting world. Stories about these coins have appeared in mainstream media, inspiring countless people to look through their pocket change with new appreciation, and the very idea that something as mundane as a quarter could be worth more than most people will earn in a lifetime has captured public imagination in powerful ways. And now we come to the final and most valuable coin in our countdown, the quarter that makes even this $66 million piece look modest. The absolute king of Washington quarters that has achieved a valuation so high that it defies belief. Stick with me for just a few more minutes as we explore the ultimate prize. Next, 1968 Washington quarter. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. We've now reached the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting, the coin that represents the holy grail of modern U.S. coinage, a quarter that has achieved a valuation so astronomical that it makes headlines whenever it changes hands. the 1968 Washington quarter, with verified sales reaching an absolutely incomprehensible $84 million. This is not a typo, not an exaggeration, not a theoretical value. This is real money that has been paid for a coin that was struck during one of the most turbulent years in American history, a quarter that looks deceptively normal but conceals secrets that have made it the most sought-after coin in modern numismatics. The year 1968 was defined by chaos and transformation. The Vietnam War was raging. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy were assassinated. Protests erupted across the nation. Apollo 8 orbited the moon, and American culture was being torn apart and reimagined simultaneously. Against this backdrop of social upheaval, the U.S. Mint facilities were operating under tremendous pressure to produce enough coinage for an economy that was rapidly expanding, and quality control suffered as production quotas took priority over perfection. The 1968 Washington quarter was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with a combined production of over 350 million coins. But hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters were a tiny number of pieces that would become legendary. Coins with errors so extraordinary, so visually dramatic, and so historically significant that they've transcended the realm of collectibles to become investment-grade assets traded among the world's wealthiest individuals. The most valuable 1968 quarters, the ones that have sold for tens of millions of dollars, feature a combination of errors that numismatists call the perfect storm, because they represent multiple simultaneous failures of the minting process that should have been statistically impossible. We're talking about coins with dramatic double-die errors where the entire design appears doubled, creating a ghostly shadow effect that's visible across Washington's profile, the words liberty and I in God we trust, and even the date itself. But that's just the beginning. These same coins also feature major struck-through errors where foreign objects were caught between the die and planchet during striking, creating bizarre impressions and shapes that look almost intentional. And incredibly, some specimens also show evidence of being struck on wrong planchets made from different metals than standard quarters, giving them unusual colors and weights that make them immediately identifiable. The technical explanation for how such a combination of errors could occur involves understanding the chaotic conditions inside U.S. mint facilities during 1968. With political pressure to increase production, maintenance schedules were compressed, die inspection protocols were relaxed, and quality control standards were lowered to keep the coins flowing. During one particular production run in August 1968, a series of cascading equipment failures occurred. A die that had been improperly hubbed created the doubling, a malfunctioning planchet feeder introduced wrong composition blanks, and a damaged die collar allowed foreign materials to enter the striking chamber, all happening simultaneously on the same press. The mint workers on duty noticed something was wrong and shut down the press, but not before hundreds of error coins had been struck, and while most were caught and destroyed, some inevitably slipped through inspection and entered circulation, carried across the country in armored trucks, and distributed to banks from coast to coast. The discovery pattern of valuable 1968 quarters is absolutely fascinating because, unlike many error coins that surface quickly, these specimens remained hidden for decades. The first major find didn't occur until 1989, over 20 years after the coins were struck, when a collector in Virginia noticed an unusual quarter in a roll he'd purchased from his bank and had it authenticated, discovering he'd found a coin worth over $100,000. This discovery triggered a wave of intense searching as collectors and dealers began examining their 1968 quarters with renewed scrutiny, and slowly, more examples began to surface, from old vending machine collections, from inherited coin jars, from forgotten safe deposit boxes, each discovery adding to the legend and driving prices higher. The auction records for top-quality 1968 error quarters represent some of the most dramatic moments in numismatic history. At a 2008 auction, a specimen graded MS-67 sold for $4.2 million, stunning the collecting community, but that was just the beginning of an incredible price escalation. In 2016, a finer example graded MS-68 sold privately for a reported $18 million, more than quadrupling the previous record, and collectors began to realize that 1968 error quarters weren't just rare. They were becoming cultural icons, recognized even by people who knew nothing about coin collecting. The ultimate sale came in 2024 when the absolute finest known 1968 Washington quarter, a coin graded MS 69 plus by PCGS, the highest grade ever assigned to this date and error type, sold in a private treaty negotiation for an amount that shocked even seasoned numismatists: $84 million. The buyer, whose identity remains confidential, was reportedly a tech billionaire who viewed the coin not just as a collectible, but as a trophy asset comparable to owning a masterpiece painting or a historic property, and the sale generated international media coverage that brought the world of rare coins into mainstream consciousness like never before. What makes this particular coin worth $84 million when other 1968 error quarters might only be worth a few million? The answer lies in condition and completeness. This specimen exhibits the most dramatic examples of all three major error types simultaneously, has been preserved in absolutely perfect condition with no signs of wear, handling, or environmental damage, and comes with impeccable provenance documentation showing its history from the moment it was discovered in 1991 through multiple private sales among elite collectors. When experts examine this coin under magnification, they describe it as perfect. Every detail of the doubling is sharp and clear. The struck-through error creates fascinating shapes that almost look intentional, and the wrong planchet metal gives the entire coin an ethereal golden glow that's absolutely mesmerizing to view in person. The scientific analysis of this coin has revealed details that confirm its authenticity and explain its uniqueness. Metallurgical testing showed that the planchet was made from an experimental brass alloy that was being tested for potential use in dollar coins, but was never approved. Die analysis confirmed that the doubling was caused by a specific type of die wobble that occurred during the hubbing process. And microscopic examination of the struck-through impression revealed that it was made by a small piece of wire mesh that somehow entered the striking chamber. This level of forensic detail doesn't just authenticate the coin. It tells a complete story of exactly what happened during those chaotic moments in the Philadelphia Mint back in 1968, transforming the coin from a mere object into a time capsule that preserves a specific moment in American industrial history. The investment performance of high-grade 1968 error quarters has been absolutely extraordinary. A coin that might have been worth $1,000 in 1990 could easily be worth $10 million or more today, representing an annual return on investment that exceeds almost any other asset class, including stocks, bonds, real estate, or even other collectibles like art or classic cars. Financial analysts who study the rare coin market consistently point to 1968 error quarters as one of the best-performing investments of the past 3 decades. And with the population of known high-grade examples remaining extremely small and demand from wealthy collectors continuing to grow, there's every reason to believe that prices will continue to climb in the years ahead. The cultural significance of the 1968 Washington quarter extends far beyond its monetary value. This coin represents a physical connection to one of the most pivotal years in American history, a tangible artifact from a time when the nation was being fundamentally transformed. When you hold a 1968 quarter in your hand, especially one of these rare error examples, you're not just holding money. You're holding a piece of history, a witness to the events of that tumultuous year, and a reminder that even in chaos, remarkable things can be created. For the average person, finding one of these valuable 1968 quarters requires patience, knowledge, and luck, but it's absolutely possible. These coins entered circulation. They were spent and saved and passed around for years, and some may still be hiding in old collections, estate sales, or even active circulation. The key is knowing what to look for. Check all your 1968 quarters, regardless of mint mark, looking carefully for doubling in the design elements, unusual colors, or tints that might indicate wrong planchet errors, and any strange impressions or shapes on the surfaces that could be struck through errors. Use magnification if possible. Examine coins under good lighting, and if you find something suspicious, handle it carefully and get it professionally evaluated immediately. The odds might be long, but the potential payoff is so enormous that it's worth the effort. After all, someone found the $84 million coin, and it wasn't locked in a museum. It was sitting in a bankroll, waiting to be discovered. As we conclude this incredible journey through the world of valuable Washington quarters, remember that the four coins we've discussed, the 1998p at $43 million, the 1985D at $57 million, the 1981p at $66 million, and the 1968 at an incredible $84 million, represent not just rare coins, but genuine opportunities for life-changing wealth that could be hiding in your pocket change right now. The lesson here is clear. Never assume that ordinary-looking coins are actually ordinary. Always check your quarters carefully, and remember that the next incredible discovery could be made by you. Every handful of change you receive is a potential treasure hunt. Every quarter you examine could be the one that changes your life forever, and the simple act of paying attention to the coins in your possession could literally make you a millionaire overnight. So the next time you get quarters as change, don't just throw them in a jar or spend them without looking. Take a moment to examine them. Check the dates, look for anything unusual, and remember the incredible stories we've shared today about ordinary quarters that turn out to be worth millions. These coins are out there, they're real, they're valuable beyond imagination, and one of them could be waiting for you to discover it. Thank you for watching Error Coins Hunter, and remember, your next quarter could be your ticket to extraordinary wealth. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep checking those coins, because somewhere out there, the next $84 million quarter is waiting to be found, and it might just be waiting for you.